Well, it's safe to say it's pretty cold today, but as usual, I'm off pike fishing. We've just been through one of the coldest nights of the year. In fact, the night temperature was about -7 last night, and still waters are frozen everywhere. So where do we turn to for a chance of a pike or two? Well, the answer is moving water. Why? Because it's normally the last place to freeze over. You don't have to wait until it gets cold to fish moving water, of course. Rivers respond at most times of the year, but certainly rivers seem to fish better than still waters when temperatures are very low, as they are today. River pike seem to be an ever-alert, opportunist fish, just waiting to spring into action and grab anything that passes nearby. So where in rivers do we look for pike? In warmer weather, they can be literally found anywhere, and whirlpools are particularly good places when the water's very warm because they're well oxygenated. In floods, look at slacks and backwaters out of the main flow where pike will be congregated with the prey in good numbers. Today, we find the river at normal level, but very, very cold. So I'm going to look for the deepest parts of the river, where the prey fish will be densely shoaled and hopefully the pike will be close by. During the course of the film, I'm going to take you down the length of the river to show you the different nature in various parts. We're going to start in the upper river. It's quite narrow up here, quite shallow, but there's plenty of fish up here. The pike aren't particularly big up this part of the river, but it's certainly good fun trying to catch them. I'm going to get my tackle out very quickly because the weather's turning bad. What I intend to do, as I've said, these are very opportunist fish. They'll grab anything that goes past them. So on a simple float rig, I'm just going to hang a small dead bait and just trot it down the current. I've brought a fair selection of baits with me today. All I intend to do is just impale a small smelt on a size 6 treble and trot it down. As simple as that. And if the pike do what they usually do, they'll be waiting there to grab it. It doesn't really matter whether you hook it in the head or the tail. All the pike sees is a fish shape flashing past and it'll grab for it. Before I cast in, I still have to make the landing net up, but that's going to be harder than I think because it's absolutely frozen solid. I'll have a go though. No, I can't do it. It's so cold, I'm going to tear the mesh if I try and set it up. So I'm going to have to hand land any fish that I should catch. One thing I will have ready is a pair of forceps. And if I catch a fish, I shall just lift it out, turn the hooks and slip it straight back. Let's give it a try. As I said, the water is 6 foot deep, so I've set the bait at about 4 foot. It's now hovering just a couple of feet off bottom. If the water was a bit warmer, I'd have had a take by now. I've reached the end of the swim now, and it's just snagging up on the gravel bar, so I'm going to twitch it back, just gently. Just put a bit of life into the dead bait, perhaps make it look like a live fish. I'm going to do this rather quickly because I've got the feeling I'm fishing too shallow. What I intend to do is perhaps increase the depth by another foot. Snagged up on something there. It may be that it's so cold the fish are very, very tight on the bottom, and I'm going to have to drop it right on the noses. Right, this time when I go down, I'm going to be dragging bottom. Still giving it a little flick now and again just to make it appear like a live fish. Yes! Yes, it's a fish. It's only a teeny one, but it's made all the coal hands worthwhile. Ooh. Yeah. One thing about river pike, even the little ones put up a good scrap. Now this one's only lightly hooked. I can't use my landing net because it's frozen to the ground. It's just one of those days. There she is, the hook just on the edge of the jaw. Oof. It's a good idea to get used to that sort of way of landing your fish, because sometimes you'll find yourself in situations where you have to do it. And that's where you want to get the hook just in the edge of the jaw, slip it out quite easily. The fish comes to no damage at all. It's only a little fish, but I like catching all of them. There she goes. Well, I only intended to catch one fish, but I've enjoyed it so much I'm going to have another cast. I'm going to get the bait right down the end of the swim where I caught that fish. Give it another 10 minutes. This time with a natural coloured sprat. Natural coloured sprat I've got on this time. Just wiggle it about a bit, put a bit of life into it as I did before. If I'd got any sense, I'd go home really. My hands are freezing. Oh, I'm just round a bit of floating debris there, but oh, I think something's just grabbed hold of it. I thought it was the debris that was pulling the float under. Yeah, something's grabbed it. I knew it to be worth another cast. Let's hope it's a bigger one. Oh, no, it feels like a smaller one. Actually, it's a much smaller one, but it's not even fighting this one. God. Well, river pike don't usually do that sort of thing. Oh, that's a bit more what they do. You should have done that further down the swim. Right. Oh, this is a bit tricky. Got it. Now there's a good reason for using a long trace. During the fight, the trace got wrapped around the body of that pike and the line was almost across its jaws, so if I'd have had a shorter trace, that could have bitten the line off. But exactly as the other fish, it's hooked so lightly in the edge of the jaw, I don't even need my forceps. I'm not sure, but it might even be the same fish. Return her safely. Well, that's river piking. Good fun, eh? Here I am now, about 6 miles downstream, on a typical section of the Middle River. Now, this section of the river has been dredged and widened, and the reason for that is to prevent flooding. The water's typically 6 feet deep, perhaps a bit more in areas, and there's a nice gentle flow on it. Rivers come in all shapes and sizes. The one we're tackling today is a typical featureless fenland type river. But it's got one thing to its advantage, and that is, because there are relatively few snags, it is very easy for a beginner to get to grips with. So how do we tackle such a piece of water? Well, a river of this nature is really quite simple to fish. The depths are fairly even, there are very few snags, means that the fish can be anywhere. and all we've got to do is find them. Now, choice of bait can be important, but unfortunately the club rules say that we cannot use live baits, and so that limits me straight away, because live baits at this time of year and on this type of water are the best way to proceed. So for now, I've started off with 2 static dead baits. I've ledgered them in different parts of the swim, but rather than just leave them there and wait for the pike to find them, every now and again I'll go twitch them back along the bottom very gently, so possibly a pike may see the bait moving, or I may move the bait to a pike that is lying static in a different place. So how do we decide which baits to use? Well, there's a vast choice of dead baits, and to be quite honest, the fish in this river have seen most of the common ones. You can try smelts, sardines, herring, mackerel, but these pike have seen a lot because this is a day ticket water. So what I try to do is something different. Perhaps something I doubt whether I'll show them something they've never seen before, but it might be something they've rarely seen. For example, fresh frozen salmon. They've not seen many of them. How about this? That's a pobda from the Indian Ocean. There's probably quite a few of these. That's half an eel. There's a lot of eels in this river and they're used to eating them, but very few anglers choose to use them for bait. And then if they don't work, I've got the old standbys, sardine, smelt, sprats, and what's this here? Indian catfish. Now there's a new one. Surely they've got to take one of those. At the moment I'm rigged with an Indian catfish and a piece of eel. Now the rig is quite simple, a very, very simple leisure rig. And I'll bring one rod in now and show you how I've rigged up. What I shall do is just gently twitch it back, which is always a good tactic. Something may grab it back. At this time of year, you can expect the pike to be lying up. I don't really expect them to be moving around a great deal. They're probably lying static. Just by twitching the bait back, you might just bring it over the heads and tempt one to grab at it. Well, it didn't happen that time, but at least I can show you the bait and how it's rigged. There are many, many variations on the ledger rig, but as with all my pike fishing, I try to keep things simple. And basically, we start with the trace. As with all my pike fishing, it's made from Barclay steel strand wire. I like the trace to end up about 20 inches long. Perhaps I ought to mention the reason we use a trace. I mean, beginners may not realise, but pike can bite through nylon. Even 30-pound breaking strain nylon, they'll just bite through it, just like going through. So wire is essential. The trace basically consists of a swivel at one end, a 50-pound breaking strain swivel. Swivels are so cheap, you might as well buy some good quality ones. Go for something like the Barclay swivel. At the other end, I've got 2 trebles for mounting the bait. Again, trebles are relatively cheap and they're such a high quality today, it's not worth skimping on them. Buy some good ones. These are Terry Eustace Super Strong trebles. Another favourite of mine is the Partridge Neville Ficklin Extra Strong treble. If you buy those 2 patterns, you won't at all. They'll never bend or snap on you. Now the trebles are actually mounted, or they're actually tied about 3 inches apart. Now, a typical bait would be about the length of my hand. I like a bait about the length of my hand. So that means that if you set the trebles 3 inches apart, one will be into the bone in the wrist of the tail, and the other one will be somewhere down the flank. As soon as any pike of reasonable proportions pick up that bait, one of those trebles will be in its mouth. And an immediate strike will see that fish being hooked. And the important thing is it will be hooked cleanly at the front of the mouth. Now, before this can happen, you've obviously got to have some sort of bite indication. So what I tend to do is use a ledger link, simple ledger link that runs on the line on a swivel. The ledger is about 2.5 ounces. And the reason for that is, as the pike swims away with the bait, the lead is too heavy for it to tow, so it must pull the line through the swivel. Now, if you're clipped up tight at the rod, the line has got to pull out of the wrong clip and give you an immediate indication that a pike has taken the bait. And over 20 years of using that rig, I'd have to think of times when a fish has taken that much further beyond the front of the jaw. Probably 99 out of 100 fish are hooked right at the front in the teeth. Now, there is another point here, and that is that the attitude of the angler has got to be taken into account. When you do get an indication of a run, you've got to take the attitude that if you care about the fish, you've got to strike straight away. So it's no good rigging up for immediate bite indication if you have the mind to strike straight away. I'll just drop this back in the margin. Imagine I've just cast that out, and I'll just show you how I set up my bite indication, because that's quite important too. Now I'll turn the bite alarm off, because it can be annoying. It can be annoying to other anglers when you're setting up. What I do, I tighten down until I'm tight to the ledger lead. I stick a heavy bobbin on the line, and then I just put the line, which is very tight, into an elastic band on the reel, like so. Now, I'll switch on the bite alarm. Now, as soon as a pike picks up that bait, the slightest pull on that line, we'll see the line pull out of the clip, and the bobbin will drop, and the electronic alarm will sound. And it's as simple as that. Now, there is something that can happen in pike fishing that you've got to be aware of. And that is, I'll just turn the alarm off again because it's annoying. That is that it's always possible with any rig for the pike to swim towards you. And should that happen, the line will go slack. So you've got to be prepared for that. So I'll set up again, like so. Put the sleeve bobbin in position. Now imagine that the pike has swam towards the rod. Well, this bobbin is made of thick, heavy plastic. It's quite heavy. And the slightest slackening of the line, we'll see the bobbin drop back and the electronic alarm will sound. So if that should happen, that means you've got to take as well as should that happen. Now, the reason I use the ledger rig is because it is very, very rare for a drop back to occur. But if you use other types of rigs, such as free lining, or you may be float fishing, you can get a drop back. So it is very, very important to bear that in mind. The alarm itself, now this particular alarm, it's a very cheap and simple alarm. And I like it because it's so light, and my pike fishing tends to be very, very mobile. And it is very easy to just pick up, plonk down in a new swim, and put the rod on straight away. There's no need for any sophistication in an electronic alarm for pike fishing. And you should be close enough to your rods to hear it. It's loud enough anyway. I think it's about 85 decibels. It's loud enough anyway, but you should be close enough to hear it. Well, what I'm going to do now, because I hate to waste time, I must get this bait back out. Yeah. Well, that's on one of those strange foreign fish I've been trying out. First run I've had on one of these. Yeah. Oh, it's only a small fish, it's up on the surface. Oh, they're all welcome on a cold day like this, though. I was beginning to wonder whether I was going to get one. The water's so cold. Ooh. Certainly fighting a lot better than the fish I had in the whirlpool. It's only a little one. Oh, it's given up. It's given up. Oh, it's nicely hooked. Oh, it's a nice clean fish. Well, I've got to be careful. There's a hook hanging out of its mouth there. That's got it. Forceps at the ready. Now I've left them at the top of the bank as usual. It's very nicely hooked. Just in the scissors there. It makes life so much easier because the hooks just come out as simple as that. Yeah, typically at this time of year the fish is covered in leeches. We've got leeches on the fins and on the underside. It's another sign that it's lined up and not swimming around much. Well, not a bad start anyway. Let's get it safely back. Yeah, lovely little fish. There's nothing wrong with that one. Right, we've made a start. Let's get another bait out. Well, things are rather slow. I'd have expected a bit more action out of this swim. There's plenty of pike here. The landlord of the local pub's just been across. He's told me there was a pike match here last week, and that's really unsettled me. You see, when a water's been hammered, it's very difficult to follow on and make a good catch. So what I'm going to do now is get my rods in, and I'm going off down the drain in a leapfrogging style, and I'm going to try and find some fish. I'm going to do it very, very quickly because the day is pressing on a bit. Well, even leapfrogging the baits hasn't been much good. I'm getting rather desperate now. I've got to find something today. I think that's going to be a spot of lure fishing. Saved the day many times in the past, maybe it'll do the same today. If that doesn't work, I'm going to try something even more different tomorrow. I'm going to get down to some deeper water. Maybe the fish are down there. But for now, I'll finish off with the lure fishing. This is another method worth trying when after river pike. It's normally associated with summer fishing, but can work pretty good in the winter. Especially when you're in an area where there's plenty of small pike. I'm going to spend the last 10 minutes of the day lure fishing. Never know, might get that bonus fish. Of course, they're not necessarily going to be small fish. Fish of any size take lures. Let's see what we can get. You never expect lures to work at this time of year, but It's always worth it on this stretch. There's plenty of small pike, so there's always the chance that something might grab your bait. You just work these spinner baits very gently across the bottom. I don't believe it. It's worked. God, it's only a little one, but... God. Well, it's not bad for a day as cold as this. Poor old thing asleep. Well, how about that? It took me by surprise, that has, I tell you. Oh, spinnerbait's well into the bottom jaw. Oh, that's a nice bonus to finish off with. Magic. Well, it looks like I'm going to be home late again tonight. Because like all anglers, I'm going to make one more cast. Well, this was the productive spot. The trouble is my fingers are so cold I can hardly feel the handle of the reel. As if yesterday wasn't hard enough, today's looking like being even harder. You may not believe this, but it's actually warmer today. I've just checked the water temperature. That's about the same, about 1 degree. The air temperature's actually gone up from -1 to just about 2 degrees now. I don't suppose this morning a lot of difference just over one day. Today I've come down on the lower river because the fishing's been so slow with the severe drop in temperature. I've got to find something in my favour. And I'm doing two things in my favour today. What I'm doing is moving to deeper water. Now I know from past experience that the roach will definitely shoal up in this area in the cold weather. And where the roach shoal up, you can see the pike are not far away. In fact, I know traditionally the pike do hold in this area. Now the other thing I'm going to do in my favour is to change my bait. Now on the upper river and the middle river, we're not allowed to use live bait, and that definitely changed to in cold weather. So today, I'm just going to use one method, and that is to trot a live bait. And if that doesn't work, I'm fairly confident it's on about. Now normally in the lower river here, there's a reasonable flow. We're not far actually from the sluice gates where the river empties out into the sea. But where you get a river with sluice, then they close the gates and the water backs up. And at the moment we've got very little flow on the river. So it's going to be quite difficult to trot the bait down the swim. There's a very, very slight flow, so the bait's going down quite slowly, but not as fast as I would like it to go. Now this piece of water in front of me, it may appear to just be a even piece of water, but believe me, it is a very interesting piece of water. Upstream of the boat, we've got about 10 foot. Just out in front of the boat here, there's a sunken boat, we believe, and the water actually is only a foot from the boat. The silt has built up over the boat, and as the current has dropped down the other side of the sunken boat, it's gouged out a deep hole, which is about 13 feet deep. And this is traditionally a place where the roach congregate. Oh, I've either snagged the bottom or something's grabbed it. Now, I'm not sure what happened there. I just set the bait slightly over depth so it was touching bottom. I did feel a snatch as I brought it back, and yes, I do believe a pike grabbed it on the retrieve. So even in these conditions, it looks like I'm going to catch my first pike. Now the reason it hasn't gone under is because I'm fishing over depth, but yes, I'm into a pike, yes. I sound a little surprised because I wasn't expecting to get one quite so easily as this. Now the thing to do when boat fishing is not to panic. You get a good fish on, deep water underneath you, you might be tempted to panic. But just take your time. Let the pike have its head if it wants to. Keep the anti-reverse off, because if the pike lunges away, you've got to give it line. You can use the clutch, but I prefer to use the backwind method. Actually, this could be a fair fish. Oh, yes. Right. As I say, no need to panic. The fish is beaten. Now, I don't intend to use the landing net. Although I would advise a beginner to use a landing net. There we are, beautiful fish. Beautiful fish. Lovely winter condition. Very, very pleased with that. Not bad in the first 10 minutes. Now the reason I don't use a landing net is because I believe that nets are a prime cause for damaging the fins on pike. Well, that pike, I will admit, it took the bait down a little way. I didn't leave it too long, but it can happen. But the fact that I'm using semi-barbless hooks has helped me to get that back. I'm not proud of the fact that he took the hook right back, but it can happen and you've got to know how to deal with it. I've just had another take, I think. Yes? I'm not too sure about this. Yesterday, in the cold conditions, the pike were taking very, very poorly. But because that last pike actually was hooked fairly deep, I'm going to strike this one as quick as I can. Yes, and I've got it. I'll tell you what, this really is a pleasure. Out here, beating all the conditions and catching my favourite fish. What I intend to do this time is show you how a beginner ought to land a fish. It takes years of practice to hand land a fish, so if you're new to the game, use a landing net. It's always easier with two, but with a bit of practice you can do it on your own. Never try and net the speed. The main thing you're trying to do is keep it away from the anchor ropes. Sink the net deep, wait till the fish is beaten, and lift. Now a beginner would be advised to get the fish into the boat. Now, the bottom of a boat can be hard. There can be fishes on it and a pike will easily be damaged. What I use is a big piece of carpet on the bottom of the boat. This is foam back carpet. It's laid out the length of the boat and the pike will not come to any harm laid on that. A beginner will probably lay the fish on the carpet, kneel astride the fish and work inside the fish's mouth with the fish firmly on the ground, but I can't bring myself to do that because I believe it damages the fish. So I like to lift the fish, go in for the hooks, turn them, get the trace out the way, and quickly get the fish back in the water. And she's away. It's important to remember that you're only allowed to live bait from the water you're fishing. You can't transfer them from one water to another. And you're also allowed to take so many in a day. I prefer a bait, and this is the way I hook it. One treble in the dorsal and one in the pectoral. And on a sluggish river like this, this will just trot down gently with the flow. The hooks are now the right, when Pike swallows it head first, the hooks are pointing in the right direction to penetrate. Right, let's get that one out, see what we can catch. Yeah, lovely looking fish. Well, I'm really on a cold day like this. Really didn't get that one. I've been flying around. I certainly don't want that in my fingers. Right. Just nipped in the teeth. Just carefully. It's about the size of the other one. Just a lovely, lovely conditioned winter fish. I'm so cold, I'm not going to weigh this one either. I'm just going to sit back. I'm just going to hold her for a minute, just give her time to recover. She'll go when she's ready. Getting anxious to go now. And she's off, lovely. Oh, that's not turned out to be a bad day at all, really. That's a possibility there. Unfortunately, I can't see. She's got to under this railway bridge. It may be the bottom because I'm dragging over depth, but I intend to just tighten up and find out. I'll have to do a sideways strike. Yes, it's a fish, but I can't hold the rod up because of this bridge. Well, that's an unusual situation to find yourself in. I can't lift the rod. It's bouncing around a bit because we're over about 15 foot of water here. Oh, it's pulling the boat round away from the bridge. Oh, it's a lively little chap. Whoa, whoa, whoa. To do that down below. Can you see the lice on its head? You may just see some lice on its head. These pike are lying up, and those lice, which you can see just between its eyes, whoops, those go onto the fish when they line up for a while. So it's got lice all on its underside and on its fins. Now what I've got to be careful of is that flying treble hook. So I'll go in carefully, get a firm grip so I'm in control. Get the forceps. Just be very careful of the teeth because, as I keep saying, the pike needs its teeth for hunting. Try not to break them. Put the hook safe out the way. Forceps. And have a look at it. You know, these are the lice on its head. I call them lice, I mean they're some sort of leeches or suckers. I always leave them on the fish, I don't think they do them any harm. As soon as the fish becomes active when the water warms up, I presume they come off. Yeah, beautiful little river pike. As always, to the side. Just hold her for a second, make sure she's okay. Whoa, she's okay. It may have been the fish, but it certainly bobbed a bit then. Yeah, something's grabbed it, I think. they don't always pull the float under, so what I intend to do is walk down and check anyway. The way it's moving off to the left. No, not that time. I'll just check the bait for teeth marks. Now, what tends to happen is if something chases the fish itself pulls the float under. I know we're going into deeper water now, so I'm going to put a bit more depth on the stop knot. And we'll start again. Yes, she's away. Yeah, something's grabbed that. Right, stow the oars quickly. Well, the float hasn't gone right under. It might just be a small pike. Let's tighten down and find out. Oh, yeah. Well, it's a pike of some description. It's only a small one, but I just enjoyed catching all of them. Here she comes. Oh, it's a very small one. It took quite a big bait as well. It's about hooked on the end of the nose. Right. Right, I might be able to actually get that one unhooked without actually touching the fish. I'll try. If they're hooked like that, what you can do is do that. I think that's enough for one day. Let's get home and get some dinner. Well, it's not been a bad old day, really. Fish. 7 fish more than I'd have had if I'd stayed in bed. Just got time for one more troll along this bank. Oh, the sleet's turned to rain now. And that east wind's rather cold. Yeah, I shan't be sorry to get in by the fire tonight. Well, I might be a bit later than I think. The sound is showing I've just gone over a shoal of fish here. I'll just slow down a bit and take the bait over them. All days aren't like this. Mind you, they say anything that comes easy is not worth having. I think that's probably very true. No need to row. This east wind's pushing me pretty hard now. I think I might come back tomorrow. Yes, I think I will. Well, I did come back the next morning. Not so cold as yesterday, but still pretty cold. But was it worth it? Well, I think so. While most other anglers are still enjoying the breakfast, I've been hauling out this beautiful pike, probably somewhere between 14 and 15 pounds. Beautifully marked fish. Took a big roach live bait, just trotted down underneath the bridge. Now all that remains for me to do is remove the hooks Got my forceps at the ready. I've just removed this deep-seated hook lower down. Get this one out of the teeth, and she's off. Now I won't bother to weigh her. Let's have a good look at her. Perhaps before I slip her back, perhaps we'll just have a quick look inside. This is why you need a wire trace. Those teeth will go straight through nylon. The pike might look a robust fish, but actually it's very delicate. I'll just show you some of the delicate areas before we put it back. The scales are obviously very delicate. Always put the pike down on something soft. The eyes are very delicate, always protect them. And the fins are susceptible to splitting, so be very careful with them. And then there's the teeth. Try not to break the pike's teeth when you're removing the hooks, because it needs them for feeding. I think it's time we got it safely back in the water. What a beautiful fish. She's off. Come back when you're 20 pounds. Shall I come again tomorrow? What do you think?